The new NAFTA is probably the easiest way to refer to it, but it needs to be ratified. Are we still facing hurdles in that in Washington? I assume that's part of the conversation today.
Yeah, we are, and I don't think the president's paying all that much attention to it, but he will as we get closer to 2020 because this is really hurting his constituency, as it should. The farm states are really hurting. The tariffs are particularly damaging to an awful lot of manufacturers, but they're really damaging to farmers who are now paying $6,000 or $8,000 more for tractors because of the tariffs, the steel tariffs and the aluminum tariffs that Trump has put on Canada. So this is a lose-lose for everybody, but Trump kind of likes losing, I guess.
There was a sincere hope on this side of the border that, it wouldn't take ratification. It would simply be the agreement between the three parties, us, Mexico, the United States, about a new NAFTA, and then we'd see the tariffs drop. That hasn't happened. What do you think it will be? Will they wait till ratification before they consider dropping the steel and aluminum tariffs?
Well, the problem, I don't know. I mean, I have no knowledge. Trump doesn't function in a particularly rational way. But my view on this is that it's going to be very hard to get this done before the election because the Democrats are going to be nervous about it. The Republicans aren't going to know what to do. It's not clear at all that the Canadians or the Mexicans will ratify this without Trump taking off the tariffs first. I mean, to put national defense tariffs on two of our most important trading and economic partners is just stupidity. And it's dishonest is what it is. So, this is not a rational administration. We don't know what's going to happen. In the end, this is going to work out because in the end, these relationships are so important to the United States that they have to work out. But we just have to have an administration that actually thinks clearly about our trade relationships, and we don't happen to have that right this moment.
You've had a pretty varied and interesting career. Physician, former governor of Vermont, as we told the audience. Perhaps they remember you're a former presidential candidate as well, but now an advisor to a cannabis firm, Tilray. What attracted you to that?
Well, for a number of things. I was never a big fan of legalizing marijuana, but my daughter is a public defender in a very difficult area in New York City, and an awful lot of people whose lives were being ruined by being arrested for marijuana. So that was number one. Number two, I actually visited Tilray because they were a client of the firm, and I was incredibly impressed by it. Was more like going to a pharmaceutical plant than anything else. You could have licked the floor and not had any bad sequelae. It was incredibly well run. And then there was great testimony from people who were not in the realm of life that you might expect in terms of the medical benefits, particularly of pain relief. Since Vermont now, along with much of the United States, has a huge opioid epidemic, I'm very interested in alternatives to using opioids for pain relief, and this is probably one of them.
Now, the American situation is interesting, particularly to us here in Canada after we legalized recreational marijuana last October. Of course, at the state level, there are rules. At the federal level, there are prohibitions.
Right.
How do you feel the country is moving? What direction are they moving in?
Well, we're clearly moving in the same direction as Canada. Canada is a much more socially aware country than the United States has been. I mean, you guys have had national universal health care for decades, and we still don't. So we can be backwards in terms of our social views, but we're going to catch up with the rest of the world. We're going to do the right thing. We have to, and I think that'll happen in 2021 when we have a new president.
So you think it will at the federal level, and of course you're hopeful that there will be a new president, given your political leanings and your political past. You think by then we will see legalization of marijuana in the United States at the federal level?
I do. I think there'll be some resistance, but the public is very, very much in favor of this. Again, we already have enough trouble with the two drugs that are illegal, which are tobacco and alcohol. But this is not a terribly, which are toxic. This is a toxic drug, but it's not very toxic, and people are going to make their own choices. It's pretty clear that the war on drugs has been lost, so we're going to have to think of other ways to deal with it. And I think putting people in jail for doing something that's bad for them is up to them. We shouldn't do that, and we're going to have to leave that up to the choice of individuals. And in some cases, there's real medical benefit to the application of marijuana. So I think we need to do this for social reasons, to stop putting people in jail for a petty crime, essentially, and not make it a petty crime anymore. And I think we need to do this for medicinal reasons, because it turns out that there really are medical benefits to using pot.
Is that what you're more interested in, the CBD, as they call it? The THC is that psychoactive component that gets people high?
Well, no,
Sorry,
It's
yes.
true. The CBD is not terribly intoxicating, and it has medical benefits, and we're learning much more about that. But even THC, there are some medical benefits. There's also danger. I mean, THC should not be used by people under the age of 18 or even 21 because that has effects on teenage brain development that are a problem. But there is also some medical use for it. And so, this is always, change is difficult. And change has to be accomplished, and I think it will. And we're going to look carefully at the Canadian way of doing this and see how it works for you. But when I went to see Tilray, I was incredibly impressed by how they were able to deal with medical marijuana. People are going to smoke pot whether we make it legal or not. So it's a little like prohibition of alcohol was in the 30s. It doesn't work, and we should stop doing it, stop regulating it like that. We should regulate it in terms of young people because marijuana is a particularly dangerous drug among young people.
All right, now when it comes to that election coming in 2020, your former chair of the DNC, the Democrats, how do you see the race shaping up? And I guess at this point, some of the people who perhaps could be putting their hats in the ring for the Democrats.
I think we may have as many as 15 or even 20 candidates. Of those, probably 4 or 5 or 6 will get through the first 4 primaries and go on to California. I don't have obviously a crystal ball to figure out who those people are going to be. That's what campaigns are about. I always laugh when people say, "Oh, but so-and-so has no name recognition." Well, that's why you're running the campaign. There'll be debates. There'll be fair debates. Everybody will be included that is a reasonable candidate, not a fringe candidate. And that'll be defined by a certain number of contributors and so forth. And then the American people will make up their mind over the series of primaries and caucuses. I'm not going to support anybody. I'm running the data operation of the DNCs, and I think those people who work for the Democratic Party have to be neutral, and so I will be.